Hey, GW coming to you live today. It's Juneteenth, federal holiday for most employees. Some employees have to work, my wife, my sister, and that totally sucks. And I feel bad for them that they got to work. So I took this morning to watch the new Firestarter movie from 2022. It's streaming now free with a Peacock subscription. But before you jump in and, get all excited for another Stephen King movie, there's a lot to like about this film. There's a lot not to like about this film. Let's just start with the good. The good is that the director, whose name I shall leave out because I don't want to mention him in trashing the film. I'm just talking about the product. The director seemed like he tried to make a good movie, just didn't know what to do with it in the end. So that's the good and the bad, first thing. The second thing that's bad is that Zac Efron, who plays Charlie McGee's dad in the film, basically, it's probably the worst Zac Efron performance I've ever seen. And I really enjoy the cat. I mean, you guys remember when he was in with Seth Rogen on Neighbors 1 and 2, and he's been in a bunch of stuff that I like. And I really dig him, but this performance, not the greatest. It's just above, because his character basically shows no emotion. That's strike two against the movie. One of the positives is the novel gets pretty much, the novel gets a little bit more fleshed out in this version. The bad thing is that, like I said, if you're going to have a movie called Firestarter, most of the fire in this film is CGI done. That may or may not turn people off. So that's bad. The good is the fact that, aside from Zac Efron's acting, Ryan Kiera Armstrong, who plays Charlie McGee, is amazing in her role as Charlie McGee. I really liked her acting. I thought she was pretty cool, and especially for a young age, she has a lot of talent. I would like to see her do more films. And I think that she really has the ability and the talent to go on to bigger and better things, especially for this. Now, the other thing that's not so good about this movie is the script. There's a couple of plot holes right from the beginning. There's a big plot hole in this script because it starts you off when Charlie McGee is a couple of weeks old or maybe even a newborn. Then they flash to where she's 12, maybe 11, 12. So there's a big time jump there. Excuse me. The one thing that's never explained is her parents are both, they have psychic ability, telekinesis, if you will. Her mom's able to levitate objects and make them crash against the wall. And her dad can basically put into somebody's head some pretty wicked thoughts. It is never really quite fleshed out and explained why this happened to them. We just know from the very get-go that they were test subjects in the DSI's experiments, if you will. That is another big plot hole in the film. In the 1980s one starring Drew Barrymore, there was a little bit of explanation on what, in that film, it was called The Shop, was doing. This one, it's a little vague until the very end. So That's another strike against the film. Now, one big major strike in this film comes at the very end of the film. I've only seen this done one other time, and believe me, it sort of detracted from the story quite a bit. Do you guys remember in Star Wars: The Last Jedi? And again, I'm not going to trash that movie, but that movie to me was not the greatest Star Wars effort of all time, and I hope to God that they do another one and it's better, but that's another rant for another time. Do you guys remember when Rey was fighting Kylo Ren to the death, and then all of a sudden they're working together like they're best friends? From a logical standpoint, when you watch a 2.5-hour movie and two people are villains, you know, or opponents, if you will, fighting each other, you don't change the dynamic really quick and say, okay, these two people are now best of friends. You know, that to me just doesn't jive. But I understand it's Hollywood, you got to make changes, whatever. In this film, there is a character called the Rainbird. He is sent by the DIS or DSI to sort of capture, you know, test subjects like Charlie and neutralize targets like her dad. Well, throughout the hour and 34 minutes I've watched this film, which thankfully it's a short run time, so that's plus for the film, that you're led to believe he is a major villain. Why at the end of the film do they have Charlie and him, does the director have Charlie McGee and the Rainbird walk away like they're, you know, father and daughter? It doesn't make any sense to me, but, you know, hey, again, it's Hollywood. You can do what you want. Now let's talk about a good aspect of the film. If you're into horror, this film has a little bit more gore than I anticipated. Most of it, you guessed it, burnt corpses. One very close-up burnt corpse in a car, which is pretty grisly. And that part of the film, you know, I stopped playing around on my phone and I checked it out and I'm like, whoa, buddy. That was good makeup. So, and again, you know, you get to see Charlie McGee go on a rampage, but another strike against the movie, I guess, is I don't think that this movie, it should have been a 2-part series. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you should have started with the DSI and had Charlie's parents in there, and then end the film and make a second part. Do you know what I mean? Kind of like they do with Harry Potter. You get so far and then you have to wait. Or they're going to do with Dune. You know. Bad thing about the film is that this came out in the middle of what I like to call remake season. When everything was going to get a remake. You know, and some of them were really cool. You know what I mean? But then you had the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was the worst piece of garbage horror film I have ever seen. This one is not that bad, but it wasn't necessarily needed. Do you know what I mean? Like, we could have stuck to the 1980 Drew Barrymore vehicle, right? And all would have been lost. I think Hollywood just said, hey, we'll remake everything. And I understand why they're trying to do that, because they want to get this current generation, you know, to sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Into, you know, classics. This one, unfortunately, it's not the worst, but it's down there, guys. It's down there. The only upshot is if you don't sit here and constantly compare this film and you don't see the plot holes, yes, it is a fun movie to watch. In segments, I'm not going to lie. There's a lot more that could have been done with this film, as I just addressed. but it's not the greatest and it's not the worst. Now, one good aspect of the film is that there was talk of a sequel, but because this thing performed relatively poor at the box office, that pretty much shut that out. Now, what I would have done at the very end of this film, and this is just me, but because people look at Drew Barrymore and still think Charlie McGee after all these years, I would have had her make a cameo appearance in this film. That might have actually raised the bar a little bit. The bad thing about this film is that, you know, the story, as I said, it's paper thin. They did not have a cameo by Drew Barrymore, which you should have done. You know? Now, I think there was Firestarter 2, and I think it was a TV movie. There's also on Peacock here, I believe, Firestarter Rekindled. I think Alyssa Milano played in that. I'm not sure. But remember, guys, they tried to remake... They made Carrie 2. Why? Why did you need Carrie 2? They actually remade Carrie, as a matter of fact, now that I think about it. And you know what? It probably did the same performance. You know? Now, this thing was... It did fair at the box office. I'm not going to say it was the worst. It did fair. And basically, to put that in layman's terms, is if 100 people went out and saw it, 50 people hated it, 50% of the people hated it, 50% of the people liked it. But I decided to see if it was as bad as what actually people say. And you know what? If you go into it and you just don't care and you just want to see, you know, an okay adaptation of a Stephen King novel, this is all right. It's an okay movie. It's not going to be, you know, the #1 horror film of the century. But if I was Zac Efron and I was Ryan Kiera Armstrong, I would probably go, okay, I did this movie that really wasn't great. Let me look and let me pick projects that are better well written, I should say. Now, I'm not taking anything away from the director, believe me. But it almost seems like when you watch this and you get done watching it, you kind of think some parts of it were rushed. And they should have spent a little bit more money on CGI, or not CGI, effects. You should have had real fire effects. That, I think, would have changed the dynamic of it. And also, the villain. The main villain of this movie, she's not that terrifying. She's not evil. You really don't know what her intentions are because she only has about 5 minutes of screen time. But the one other good thing I will say about this movie is that Kurtwood Smith, and if you guys don't know him, he's the guy that was on the 70s show, played Red. He was also in a little film that I love called RoboCop. He played Clarence Bodiger, cop killer. He's in this. He's not in this for very long, but it's good to see him in this. Now, here's my logic. If you can pull him into the movie, why couldn't you do a Drew Barrymore cameo at the end? That's all I'm saying. But on the plus side, didn't have to really spend money to buy a Blu-ray. I could watch it with Peacock. Peacock, you know, you can get for a year for like, I don't know, what is it, 60, 80 bucks? I don't know what it is. But that is the one good thing, is that despite all the flaws some of these movies have, these streaming services are pretty cool because, like, I don't have to go on Amazon to get a Blu-ray. I just have to have I can watch the movie in the privacy of my own home, sometimes even before Blu-ray, and I did that with Jackass Forever, which, again, was an awesome flick. But, like I said, it's not the worst Stephen King adaptation, and it certainly isn't the best by any means. That being said, you know, feel free to check out Firestarter. It's streaming on Peacock. And I'm telling you guys, just don't go in there expecting, you know, a winner. But Kira Ryan Armstrong, or Ryan Kira Armstrong, whoever, whatever her name is, I just lost track. She is fantastic, and I hope to God she has an amazing acting career after this, because she played it pretty well, I think. That's the major bright spot. The major downfall of this movie is the story wasn't fleshed out enough. But I did read the novel. Some of the parts of the novel are better translated in this film. You know, so take the good with the bad on this one. I'm not telling you that I hate it, but I'm not telling you I'm going to watch it again. That's all I'm saying. You guys can take it for what it's worth, and I hope everybody has a great Juneteenth. And for those people that are working right now, you know, I'm really sorry. You guys should have got the day off. I mean, that's all I'm saying. You know, but Fuzzy, what'd you think about the movie? You fell asleep? Yeah, he has the same opinions I do. Till later. GW. Catch you later.